appreciate the job that you do. Know it's a handful, and we look forward to hearing your presentation. And if you'd like to, you're certainly welcome to recognize some of the folks that you brought here with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always a pleasure to come before your committee and we have an exciting update to provide you. Before I get started, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce several folks with me. I've got with us today our 1st Congressional District Commissioner, Robbie Robbins, our 3rd Congressional District, Ben Davis, who is also our chairman-elect, will take the chairman's seat at this February commission meeting. Our 4th Congressional District Representative Woody Willard on the commission, our current chairman. Gene Branham, our 5th Congressional District Commissioner, and Tony Cox, our 7th Congressional District Commissioner as well. I also have with me several of the senior leadership of the agency. Starting directly behind me, I have Mr. Greg Davis. He's our Director of Minority and Small Business Affairs. Carl McCottry, he's our HR Director. Mr. Leland Colvin, he's our Deputy Secretary for Engineering. Mr. Jim Theda, he's our Deputy Secretary for Intermodal Planning. Mr. Brian Keys, he's our Deputy Secretary for Finance. Alan Hutto, our Legislative Liaison, is here, and we also have with us today Mr. Wayne Sands, he's Director of Internal Audit Services through the State Auditor's Office. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to begin. You should have before you a packet of information. It's roughly about 11 slides. I'd like to kind of run through them quickly with you to leave time for questions. I understand you're pressed for time today. My main message for you today is that the state of the DOT is simply this. We are very focused and very grateful on putting those new tax dollars to work on our roadways. We currently have about $3 billion with a D of road work underway. That's a little more than 3,200 projects between the ones on the street and the ones coming through the pipeline today. We are at our highest level of activity over the past decade, and there's still much more coming down the pipeline to deliver over the next couple of years. Just looking strictly at the numbers, and as reflected on this chart you have before you here on page 3, our program, as I mentioned, is a $3 billion program. Basically, we've tripled our value of work just over the last 3 years. It's out on the street. We went from a $1 billion an active construction program to a $3 billion active construction program today. And that number will climb actually even higher this month as we move forward with another one of our large projects, putting that out to contract, which is the 85 Phase 3 project in the Spartanburg, Cherokee County area. That project alone will push us over the $3 billion threshold. All this started and was enabled basically through your action, dating all the way back to 2013-14 session when Act 98 was initially passed, which was followed quickly by Act 275, and then finally the landmark legislation last year, which was Act 40, or the roads bill. 2013 brought forward Act 98, which basically introduced $110 million of recurring funds to the agency. 2016 brought the passage of Act 275, which also included some reform efforts. That brought an additional $154 million to the agency. And then finally, with the roads bill, after it's fully phased in, this year we expect to receive roughly about $149 million new dollars recurring. When it's fully phased in, that'll represent an additional $600 million roughly onto our annual programs. So at the end of the day, our fully phased in, ramped up program, Act 98, Act 275, and Act 40 combined, we're looking at a grown program of state dollars of about $800 million annually for full implementation. Another way to look at that is to simply say this, that through your action, you have doubled the amount of state dollars that are going to be directed to the DOT for road and bridge projects. So there's a lot to celebrate in that number. Another item, just for note on that, it's not just the amount of road work that we're proud of, but it's the economic impact on the state. We dusted off a Darla Moore School of Business study that was done several years ago that represents how many jobs are created through infrastructure investment. We've done some rough estimations, and based on that study, we believe that this increased investment will generate roughly about 25,000 new road and bridge jobs in the state. So a tremendous impact on our economy. Our industry is responding to this. I know that was a concern, and part of the reason we asked that the implementation be phased in. They are responding, they are ramping up. We're seeing new capital investment, in particular on the asphalt market, more plants coming online, additional capacity added at those plants. So we're all moving in harmony to deliver this big program. You may recall during the debate, I came over here many times and shared with you what our vision was and what our priorities would be for investment. I'm proud to say that our commission has endorsed and embraced those priorities and has concurred that that is the investment scenarios that we want to follow. They have already taken decisive action to increase resurfacing programs, to launch the Rural Road Safety Program and improve those projects moving forward. They've approved the interstate programs when we presented them and approved the bridge programs as we presented them to them. Our core program increases are centered around 4 main areas. Paving, which has been our single largest area of underinvestment in the state in decades. We anticipate doubling that paving program over time, incrementally each year, growing at about $50 million a year. Each county in this state will see the benefit of that. Actually, a dramatic increase on the paving program in each county between what the CTCs are being allocated and what DOT's planned increased programs are. As a matter of fact, since July 1st, since the go date on the Act 40 program, we've released 1,300 miles of resurfacing projects on 1,525 roads in this state, in every county of the state. We've also moved forward with the Rural Road Safety Program. As you know, unfortunately, we lead the nation in the fatality rate on our highways, and in particular, our rural roads are incredibly dangerous. We designed a program, our commission approved it, to try to tackle the 5% of our network where 30% of our fatalities are happening. Very strategic, targeted approach. Our goal is to address 1,000 miles of those roadways over this next decade, roughly about 100 miles a year. Proud to announce today that our team has already actively engaged in this. Our maintenance forces in particular have embraced this program and moved ahead with implementing corrective action where they are able to on the highways, taking leadership roles in those. And just this past month, I signed the award letters on several resurfacing projects that included safety features added to those roads. As a matter of fact, 43 miles of roads across the state we've already moved forward with on signing contracts to incorporate these features. This coming month, March, we have roughly another 74 miles of rural road safety features being added to projects for a total of 117 miles, well above our target of 100 miles in this current year of rural road safety features added to our highways. So we're very much on board with this program and tracking very well on it. Bridge replacements, again, our goal is to completely eliminate all load-restricted bridges in the state over the next 10 years with the replacement program. And we will also tackle some of the structurally deficient bridges on our national highway system, those high traffic corridors. And then finally, on our priorities, our interstate widening program is very healthy, moving forward. After decades of delay, we finally have moved forward with the 85 through 85 interchange, the widening of I-77, the widening of I-20, and are on schedule to move forward with, as I said, I-85 phases 1, 2, and 3 coming this month, and then several other projects on the near future bringing forward, such as additional widenings on I-26, Carolina Crossroads, and a partnered project with Georgia to widen I-20 for the first mile or so coming into the state. One of the cornerstones of our program is to make sure our entire agency is in sync with what our vision is and what our planned program levels are going forward. So we have taken the initiative to develop a 10-year program where we've laid out all sources of revenue, so all federal, all state dollars, and and where we're going to apply those for particular programs. This chart basically is that blended program. We call it the consolidated program, comprehensive program. So no longer, do you have to go to the STIP to look at the federal dollars and then go over and look at the state plan and try to figure out how they mesh together. This basically tells you in one simple graph where we're allocating the funds and where our priorities are. First and foremost, on this chart, you can see our biggest investment area is on pavements. And you can see, as I mentioned, today we're roughly about $348 million on resurfacing state and federal dollars, and our plan is to grow it over time to a double of that state to well over $700 million a year. Same thing on our interstate program, roughly seeing a doubling of that program planned over time to support the initiatives that we've outlined. Our bridge program, basically a 50% growth in that program. Our safety program, basically doubling it by adding that rural road safety program to it. Our MPO COG program and our freight programs, currently we have not increased those as of yet. There's one item that we haven't covered on this chart, I haven't included in the 10-year plan, and that is the roughly $114 million that is expected to become available once the tax credit sunsets. We expect to start dialogue on that with our commission this month and talking about how those dollars should be deployed, what the priorities would be, what programs they need to be added to in order to hit certain targets. And it's a tremendous challenge to look through that, because when you look back at the needs of the system, clearly there's still $1 billion worth of widening needs that are needed on I-95 and I-26. Roughly about $42 million needed for the MPO and COG programs to accomplish the widening projects that are needed to keep pace with development. $60 million for routine maintenance, $46 million more for bridges, $38 million for transit, and the list can go on and on. So trying to figure out where that 117 should be programmed will be something that we will be discussing this coming month moving forward. One of the key things we have also put into place is a strategic plan. And this is not intended to be a strategic plan that's simply a document that's submitted to the executive office and sits on a bookshelf. This is truly meant to guide our programs and our activity levels, synchronize our internal and external efforts, and make sure we're all pushing in the same direction to deliver this very ambitious program that we've laid out. You have before you a copy of our strategic plan document. I would invite you at your leisure to take a look through that and see just what we've laid out. We've laid out our priorities, we've laid out our targets, and we've laid out how we're going to measure ourselves going forward. And it has things in it like what our anticipated targets are for bridge replacements, what our anticipated targets are for improving different pavement systems across our network, our key interstate programs, our internal activities as well, including that coordination that's necessary between us and the contracting community and utility providers and others that all play a role in the delivery of projects. Our 5 main goals in that strategic plan are basically this: to address safety, to maintain our existing infrastructure, to improve program delivery, provide a safe and productive work environment for our people, and then to earn that public trust. Those are the 5 key strategic goals that we've laid out. This is just one of the items that we intend to measure ourselves against, and this is essentially our planned recovery of the state's payments, where we expect to track over time with increasing percent good across the network. Currently, our interstate payments are roughly about 65% good. We expect to drive that number up to about 90% good. Our major roads, those are your primary routes, they're roughly about 23% in good condition. Yet half of our travel occurs on that section of roadway. We're going to make a major investment there and try to drive that number up to well over 50% good, so try to double the percent good. And the same thing applies to the secondaries. Try to drive those numbers up roughly about double where we are today. The CTCs we expect will play a tremendous role as well in helping drive those secondary payment condition numbers up. I mentioned measuring our success or our progress. We also plan to report on that regularly and annually, monthly. We've developed dashboards, and we'll continue to enhance those going forward. I envision a time each month that we will do a presentation to the commission on a regular basis, updating them on the appropriate metrics that change regularly so that they can have visibility into how the organization is performing, as well as an annual report to the General Assembly on how we're tracking, how the programs are tracking, how our activity levels are tracking, as well as how the revenues and expenses are tracking as well. In other words, transparency and accountability. Our web development team internally has done a tremendous job trying to revamp our web page. It needed a tune-up, and they have, just this past weekend, updated it and went live with it. So we still have a few little bugs we're trying to work out of the system, but it is seriously revamped, try to make it a lot easier. It's very mobile device friendly, where you can go in and look at the items of concern or items of interest. I'd like to point out in particular, we have added a button for the Infrastructure Maintenance Trust Fund. That trust fund was set up as directed by the General Assembly. The revenues directed to it, programs assigned to it as well to pay out of. So that button is there and is live today. I'd like to spend just a brief moment talking about my leadership initiatives with the team at the agency. We're a firm believer that continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. I think that quote sums it up quite well. So we're constantly looking at better ways to do business, trying to learn from other states, participating in regional and national forums to try to apply better business practices that other states have implemented. We've also fully embraced the LEC report, the efficiency study that was just commissioned. We're moving forward with it. I already mentioned strategic planning and making sure we're organized, performance management, risk management is something new to the agency as well. For the first time that I can recall, we've held regional transportation meetings where we've gone out and met with CTCs in the regions to explain to them and have good dialogue with them on the priorities, the current condition, data that we have available that can help them and basically provide resources to them to help them decide which projects to select. We've held numerous contractor, utility, and material supplier outreach sessions. One of the key items that we've done is trying to make sure that they understand what our needs are by region so we can lay out that 10-year plan and explain to them what our intended growth is by basic market. And then we have a very strong internal audits team, including a member of the internal audits that is well versed in Lean Six Sigma, who is also helping us with the process improvements. So a lot of good things happening at the DOT from an operational standpoint. And then finally, I would just like to dedicate this presentation to the hardworking men and women of the DOT. Their commitment and dedication to service is without question, and I'm very honored to serve as their secretary. Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'll be more than happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Secretary Hall. We've just experienced some unprecedented cold weather with a number of ice, snow events earlier in the year. And I know in my neck of the woods, I saw roadways completely disintegrate as soon as the ice melted. Do you have any estimates over the cost of what it would take to repair from the damage that we saw earlier in the year with the ice and the snow?
Mr. Chairman, we have not completed that assessment yet.
But that's something that you are doing?
I believe our district offices are working on that, yes, sir.
The cost to make those repairs, where would those dollars come from?
Well, it would either be incorporated.
How would it impact what you just presented to us?
Typically, it would be incorporated into the resurfacing program to try to accelerate some of those needs. It could also be incorporated into, we have a small amount of funding set up in our maintenance program for extreme weather events. It's not a tremendous amount of money, but that would be one resource for it, sir.
I've seen at least 2 roadways in Berkeley County that there was no road left to repair. But anyway, and you're aware of those, and so is your staff. And I was just really wondering how widespread that particular type of problem was. It was as if we have received a decade worth of wear within a week. I'm going to open it up to questions. I'm sure we have a lot. And Senator from Clarendon was first on the list, and followed by the Senator from Berkeley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Secretary, and your staff for all that you're doing to help bring improvements to our roads. Just a couple of brief questions. I noticed when you were talking about the interstates and work that you were planning to do or had ongoing, I think we mentioned every interstate except for I-95. I was listening for that. And throughout my travels, I really can't imagine any interstate that has more issues than I-95, especially as you enter or exit the state of Georgia and that whole bottleneck issue. Are there anything that you all are doing to also bring about improvement to Interstate 95 throughout South Carolina?
Senator, I would expect that I-95 would compete very well in a freight program. That is one of the recommendations that we will have for our commission to consider this coming month. So while it's currently not identified today, I can't promise that it would be in the future, but I would expect that it would be one of the potential projects that we talk about with our board this coming month.
I have some other questions, but just in the interest of time, you can talk later. I know others have questions. The commissioner for the 6th Congressional District has that changed or?
No, sir. Commissioner Glover, he has
Okay, great.
family
Thank you, sir.
Senator from Berkeley, and then Senator from Oregon.
Madam Chairman, Secretary, I know that this is a follow-up on Senator Glenn's earlier question about the ice and snow. I know when North Carolina was under extreme weather conditions, the governor declared a state of emergency. Does that make them FEMA eligible? And do we have any possibility of some of our repairs being funded by FEMA? Because it happened over the storm. I mean, and you're right about the condition of the roads. I mean, basically the thaw and freeze, it just killed a lot of the roads, especially in the low country, in Berkeley, Dorchester, and Charleston counties. It put significant wear on them. And I see that as an issue to try to get the funding for. I'm hoping we get some support from the federal government on that. I'm not sure if it's going to be available or not.
Yes, sir. Senator Campbell, we encountered a similar issue back in 2014 when we had basically a statewide ice storm that destroyed a lot of roads in the Midlands and in upstate. And we went through a very similar exercise trying to look to see if there was a way to get federal assistance for road repairs. While the federal system is well poised to assist with debris removal, like from limbs falling, heavy weight on from ice, it's not well suited in our state to deal with road damage because inevitably what they'll do is the federal partners will look at it and say, well, what was the condition of the road prior to the ice storm? And if the road was in poor condition, as most of these could have been, then there's basically little or nothing that they will do as far as infrastructure rebuild. So we always look to turn over those rocks, Senator, but at this time I'm not expecting any federal assistance for that.
I'm worried about what it does to the other programs. I hate to take something away from the plans, but there's some roads that really need some attention.
Yes, sir.
And y'all are doing a great job with follow-up too, probably. I do appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am.
Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Madam Secretary. A couple of things I want to just, I guess, offer up one quick question. First off is just thank you for the what I would call a turnaround with this agency over the last few years. You have, I know with me and with many of my colleagues, a very, very high degree of confidence because with the work you're doing. And your communication with us has been made it very helpful, like today and any time we call. I know you're willing to drop whatever you're doing and get us schooled up on what we're asking about, and I'm thankful for that. Appreciate the good job you're doing and the good folks you have with you.
Thank you.
I was looking at your strategic goals, and of course they're all important and they're all meaningful. The one or two that really stuck out to me was providing a safe and productive work environment for the DOT employees. And I feel very strongly about that. I know you do as well. I know we've lost some DOT employees over the years. you know, and I liken that, in my view, that's like losing a police officer in the line of duty. They're public servants that we're sending into a dangerous work environment by its very nature. It's a dangerous work environment, and I applaud you for taking whatever steps that you can to make that safer, and call upon us when you see opportunities for us to make that safer. I know we've taken some steps in that direction, but I know there are more steps that can be taken, so I would ask you to, you know, don't hesitate to call us for that. And lastly, just a question about earning the public trust, because I find that as an elected official, that can be a challenging goal that we certainly have. Well, in any time in history, certainly this time in history is no different. I know you're going to do that through improved communication. I know you mentioned the website. Do you have some, could you share with us some strategies that you intend to employ to accomplish that goal?
Well, obviously increased communications is key to that, but it's even deeper than that, and it's what we articulate or how we communicate and what we say. We're a very technically based organization, and while we may explain something and think that it's perfectly clear, to us it may not be clear to those that don't live in the DOT world and use DOT language. So one of the most challenging things we've dealt with here recently is trying to, and I apologize to my engineer friends in the world, I'm an engineer myself, but trying to de-engineer the explanation of how we do projects has proven to be a real challenge for us, how to communicate that. And so it's not that we don't want to explain what we're doing or how we get from point A to point B, but sometimes we might be a little over technical in the explanation. So basically trying to communicate in a way that's meaningful to the average person. And so part of what we're doing is looking at all those performance measures and trying to develop ones that are meaningful to the average citizen in our state, not necessarily talking about % freight hours of delay in the state, because that's meaningful to our freight industry and meaningful to our oversight agencies at the federal level, but it doesn't really mean that much to the average citizen that's stuck in traffic 20 minutes longer than what they thought that particular day. So it's those type of initiatives that we're focused on. Our internal audit, revamped internal audits is playing a key role as well in helping us conduct process reviews, helping us kind of look back on some things that we're doing just to make sure that what we intended to do and what corrective actions we intended to take is actually happening and is achieving the result that we're looking for. So it's really embracing this whole notion of improving the organization.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Dorchester, and then Senator from Clackamas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, thank you for coming. I too want to echo Senator from Horry's comments and share my appreciation with you, particularly on the transparency issues. As you're well aware, that was one of the biggest challenges that we had as we worked on the various bills over the last few sessions, was committing to the public that things were going to be open and available to them. And I think the tools that you're providing, particularly the online tools, are very helpful. And I just hope that for those members of the public that are truly concerned about that, utilize those tools and will take some time to familiarize themselves with that. So thank you for that. I really don't have a specific ask on this, just more of a comment than anything else. We all share with your concern of making sure we get as many dollars to the right projects as possible, and love to see these graphs of projects and dollars going in the right direction. But I think we also recognize that not all projects will go smoothly, and there will be instances where when you're building a road, it's difficult, or rebuilding a road, it's difficult, and things you will no doubt encounter problems from time to time. With that in mind, particularly with respect to the counties, I know the counties are taking a role in expanding and building upon many state roads, and as part of that process, DOT takes over those roads at the end of that process. And I know in our own counties, we've had instances where there have been problems with that construction process that we've had to go back in and fix. and have heard some instances where there's some challenges in that part. So again, no specific ask, just encourage you to please work with those counties to expedite the process of taking those roads over, making sure that obviously you're taking over something that's quality built and complete, but to work with those folks as much as possible to transition those, because those are significant outflows of dollars from the counties, and we need to make sure that they're working properly and taken care of. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Senator from Collins.
I want you to know that I'm not going to echo what they said, because women are usually a little different, but I do sing your praises primarily, and not because of some of the things they've said, but primarily because of your response. Because response is very important to us, because you understand that we have constituents that are asking for us, and I appreciate the fact that you, if we ever call, you always respond and then put us in the right direction. Thank you for that. I have a couple of questions. Primarily, I've been asked this question, so maybe you can dummy it down for me. What specifically, and I'm talking about my area, what specifically are the tenets of your rural safety plan and implementation of that? How does that compute to my folks and in my area? Because I'm still getting a lot of complaints from some of the roads being gone. The FedEx guy doing Christmas time in the Hampton and area was still complaining about 2 years and the road still being gone. One particular road, and it taking him an extra, from Bluffton area, taking an extra 40 minutes to get to his route. What do we get to learn about what the real rural plan is?
So there's multiple components of what I guess you would characterize as a rural program. First of all, there's the rural road safety program.
Okay.
That it has been set up, and I'll be happy to meet with you right afterwards. I have some maps that we can talk specifics on for your area. But that particular program is designed to target what we call the worst of the worst roads in the state from a safety perspective.
Death numbers,
Fatalities and serious injuries, primarily from runoff of road accidents. So that's what we're trying to target, not all accidents. So focus in on what we believe we can affect as an engineering-based organization, which is the design and maintenance aspects of those rural roads. So that program is tailored specifically for that purpose. But besides that program, there's also the increased resurfacing program that we've developed and moved forward with, and I'd be more than happy to provide you some tables that shows in your district which counties, what we've allocated to those counties for resurfacing dollars by route type.
I would appreciate
yes,
that.
Yes, ma'am, as well as what the CTCs have been allocated in your district for road funding. That'll help you see the universe of funding availability, and then we can pair you up with our local engineers to help look at what roads are being selected for inclusion in those annual paving programs. So I'd be more than happy to get you that information.
I would appreciate that. The other thing is I want to thank you for your response time during the recent snow that we had for right after Christmas. I understand you had the issue of not having enough salt, and you ended up having to get that. And thank you for being resourceful. Now, I'm going to ask about something that was brought to, that I learned about last year from your state, your address. There was a 10-year plan in place, and that plan's implementation started before I even came to the Senate, and it ran through 2023, am I correct, or 2021?
It actually goes through 2026.
Okay.
It is what is included in the that consolidated program.
Well, that's what I asked about the last time, and I hate, and Senator from Clarendon brought it out. Who makes up the committee or the committee that determines what that plan is going to be? Because I'm not gonna make any bones about it. I was just very concerned that the lower half of South Carolina was not considered, it seemed, in that strategic plan, because 95, the thoroughfare from Savannah through the state of South Carolina, is not on that list. And I'm really concerned about that because we have intermodal issues coming from the port in Charleston through 95, and as a result, those roads are, and I travel on 26, I travel on 85, I travel on 285 and 20 a lot. But it seems that the area that affects economic transport of products from Charleston and the interstate on 95, it seems that we haven't even considered putting 95 on that list. And if they're not on there, it takes us out. Now, we're not even gonna get into the 526 issue, because I do think that that's an issue, but I think in priority, I've got to be honest and say that we need to handle that one later. I'm worried about if we're not on that list, I want to know who's on that committee that's making their determination and not including us on that list, because the transit in our area has affected us as far as economic development and getting product from product. Understand now, I'm trying to get a port at the Jasper area, and our projection is 2023. If we can't even get that going, because we have a 95 that's not being effective. So that was my question, statement, and everything else.
Ms. Hall, before you proceed, I want to remind the members that we're in session in about 3 minutes. I would rather.
There's a problem there.
I would rather not have to recede and bring the secretary back after session. So if your questions could be answered one-on-one after the meeting, it would be appreciated. We've got the overview of where we are, and I believe that the Secretary Hall in her presentation said that the freight corridor portion or proposal will be before the commission for action. So if you could briefly touch on the freight corridor, which I believe that I-95, sections of I-95 and I-26 will certainly be a part of that. If you could briefly touch on that, I want to make sure that we are not in here when session begins.
Mr. Chair, do you want that resolution on the agenda? No.
Also, members, we do have a second part with a resolution to create a pilot program or to ask Congress to allow a pilot program between Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina on commercial driver's license for folks between the ages of 18 and 21 to haul commodities. If individual members would want to speak with me about that afterwards, I may try to.
Do you endorse
to pull. Yes, I may try to pull this out or ask it to come out.
Second. For the doctor.
Why you make it hard? Move it out.
We'll make sure we have it right out. I'm not going to.
If you got majority,
We've got a motion for a favorable report on S-951, the resolution. Any discussion to the motion? Hearing motion to a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Thank you. And Ms. Hall, if you could briefly touch on the
I can talk to Ms. Hall
Okay.
outside chambers.
and I apologize to the senator from Litchfield and the senator from Horry who has some questions, but if they could be answered by the committee or by Ms. Hall, it would be appreciated. Ms. Hall, we want to thank you for the work and the dedication that you have for the Department of Transportation and to the people of South Carolina, and for moving the ball forward, ensuring that our network is safe, efficient, and effective. And I think you've been able to do a great job with that, and we look forward to hearing continued good things from the department, because we all have needs within our district, and it can all be fixed with money, but you can only crawl as fast as we're allowing you, but you now have a bigger chunk of money to get the job done, and we appreciate what you do. With that being said, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Motion is made to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. Senate Transportation Committee now stands adjourned.